Hello and welcome. Anybody who is watching this live, hello and welcome. Anybody who is watching this after the fact, I hope you're doing fantastic. Today, what I am going to go through is I am going to be working on the Recast blog, right? So the goal here has been to build a software as a service and then try to sell it. And it's going to be a little more involved than just a weekend hackathon, right? Where we just throw something together and then throw it up and try and get someone to buy it. But really, what you want to be selling is you want to be selling a business. And so when we think about a business, there's more than just the product behind it. That's obviously very important, and that's what we've been focusing on for the first several episodes. But now we need to get into the rest of what makes a business, right? And so that's going to be solving that pain point and then driving traffic to our service. And the best way to do that is through marketing. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but there's two types of marketing that you're going to kind of find yourself falling into. One is I'm throwing out, memes, videos, things that are funny, entertaining, kind of like the quintessential, like you're watching ads on TV, right? Brand awareness, just trying to get a lot of eyeballs onto like what you're doing so people understand that you exist. And then the other side of marketing is content marketing. And this is where you're producing content that is genuinely useful. And yes, you're producing it with like the side of, hey, you should come check out my service. It like solves some of these pain points. But really, you're trying to just put out something there that's like answering how to solve a problem, how to do something specific, how to go about tackling a specific sort of problem that people might have, right? And the best thing about content marketing is because you're writing it to be like, I'm going to create some content and it's going to help somebody solve this problem. Sometimes that's with your service, sometimes that's not with your service. Then you are writing that content and people are searching for it. They're actively looking for that sort of thing that you're writing. And so content marketing is a great way just to like help out general people and then to also make them aware of kind of like your service and what you do, and you can have hooks into the rest of what your product is. And so a lot of startups will do this sort of thing with their blog, right? And so they will have their company blog and it will describe sort of like things that you might be wanting to do with your service or adjacent to your service. And a good example of this, we can get into it, will be something like Banner Bear, which I've been following the founder of that for a while on Twitter. And, their blog basically just puts out content. And some of that content's like how to do stuff specifically with their service. And other of it's just like, hey, here are cool ways to do this sort of thing, right? And so that's what we're going to be aiming to build for Recast, which is a file conversion service, right? There's lots of ways you can convert files. Some of that is with other online services. Some of it is just doing it locally on your computer, right? A lot of what you can do online, you can also do on your computer if you have the tools available. And you don't always have the tools available, which is why doing things online can be useful. And so we are going to go through and implement not only the blog side of this, right? So we need to like create the blog page. We need to, I'm going to do this with Markdown, and we're going to use MDX, which is like an extension to Markdown, which allows you to actually embed React components in your Markdown if you want to. So we're going to do it that way. But then we're also going to go through and if we have time, we're going to take a look at how we can use some AI tools to help generate content, right? And it won't necessarily be the exact thing that gets posted to the blog, but it allows us to simplify this process of, okay, when you say I'm going to have a blog and like write stuff on it, right? You need to have a process down which will actually get things from, your head out onto paper and go ahead and ship it. So that is sort of what we're going to be tackling today. We will see how far we get. But this is going to take basically our product, which right now is basically just the conversion service, and really sort of extend it into the world of like, okay, we are now broadcasting things out into the universe, right? And if we do a good job with the SEO and start working on like the domain authority to, let people know that, hey, we know what we're talking about, where you do conversion stuff, right? We start working in that direction, then it will organically over time help pull people in. And I think a lot of engineers spend a lot of time building and just working on like the product side and not actually thinking at all about the business side. And so this is really one of those things that we're going to do mostly for the business and not so much just for like making the product better, right? So with that being said, I'm going to jump into the code, give you a quick brief tour, and then we're going to be on our way. So hello and welcome and enjoy. All right, so here is our homepage, and we are on localhost. This is just like the local page. You can go to recastfile.com, and this is the production version of it. We still have our lorem ipsum. I haven't quite finished the rest of the homepage, but the rest of the homepage is just going to be kind of like, here's a couple of highlights about what we can do. And the top bar here, right? Like we don't have any content. It feels a little empty in terms of like someone landing on this page and being like, oh, like, can I really trust you, right? There's a level of authority you need to have when people land on your page because they're going to give you 10 seconds. And a great way to build out that authority is going to be have a blog that people can look at and be like, when was the last time you posted? What are you posting about? That sort of thing. It helps build faith in your tool, in your service, all that jazz. For conversion, it's pretty straightforward. So you can just like select something and then it pulls up this file to convert. You can say what you want to convert it to. So you can convert it to like a WebP sort of image. And this is localhost again. So when we click convert, we need to make sure our converter is working. And in the background, this is going to do the conversion, and you can click download, and voila, you now have this lovely thing in WebP format. So it works pretty well, all in all. It's running in production as well. The converter, the website itself is on next.js and Vercel, although the converter runs on DigitalOcean behind the scenes. And so really here we want to kind of start looking at what does it take to build out a blog page, which is just totally refreshed. That was interesting, right? 404 right now, don't have a blog, have nothing. So we need to kind of build this all from scratch. So the actual app itself is not super complicated. So far we have like our API, allows you to upload, download, and check on the status of a file. We'll have API docs for that one day. And then this is kind of all stuff that just helps the main page. We have our converter, we have a lib folder, and we have some components that we're building. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build out the blog homepage. We're going to build out the specific blog pages themselves, which I think is actually going to be more straightforward than the blog homepage. We will go check out a couple of other blogs and just kind of get a look and feel for like how they do their styling, so we can kind of borrow some of that. And yeah, we're going to from exe to DMG. Thanks, Tomer. Yeah. We do say anything to anything, and so there's a world where we could make that happen. I mean, there are things that let you run EXEs on Macs, but no promises. The goal is to get there. We'll see how far we get. So for our app, let's go ahead and scaffold out a couple of these pages, right? So new file is going to be, we'll just do blog. I think SEO prefers the blog to be on the root domain instead of like blog dot. And since we're building it into next.js, we can do that pretty easily. And so now we can have our page TSX file. And then within the blog, we're also going to have sort of a slug, right? And that's going to be each of these sub pages, so to speak. And so that will be like our specific blog page. So here we can export default async function. We'll make it a server function, right? And we can now just return sort of the general like hello blog world. And now our blog actually runs and we have hello blog here. And then for the individual sort of slug page, we can also scaffold this out. And here, we also want to make sure we have the params that are being passed in, right? And so the param.slug is what is this route parameter. And so that's going to be passed in, and we will be able to use this to correctly load and show the MDX that we want to do. Hello from Maine. Hello, Giannis. Welcome. Maine's great. I haven't been there in a while, but it is a fantastic place. Lots of trees, lots of black flies. How are they this time of year? So we don't have the stuff installed to do this. And so if you're doing this, go ahead and check out the next.js docs, right? And they have an entire section on the app router and using MDX, right? And so we are going to install all of these packages such that we can use MDX. So jump over to your dev. I use pnpm, install all of that. So give that a second. And now what they want us to do is create this MDX component.tsx in the root of your application. And what this is going to do is this is going to define any special components you want to use. So if you want like your H1 when it's converted to have a certain styling, you can do it in this way really, really easily. So we'll just copy this MDX-components, and we'll go ahead and make that. Make sure we do it at the top level, MDX components, right? And paste this in. Perfect. And now we need to update the next.js configuration. It's experimental as of right now. When you are following this, it might not be experimental. So that's the one we want. Not that one. This one. And lastly, we need to make sure we are using the correct configuration. So we've updated our configuration. And so what they do here is they have sort of a app/hello. You can put this basically anywhere, right? And then all the MDX that we just imported allows you to basically just import content from whatever it is, in this case, the file right here. And this is good. We're gonna have to play around with it a little bit though, because instead of just importing like any one specific thing, we want to import, we want to be able to import like all of them, which actually I think there's gonna be a better way to do this. I take this all back. Let's do this slightly differently. So for right now, let's go here, and in this slug, let's go ahead and create the slug is going to be, there's a couple different ways to do this. Let's just do hello world.mdx, right? And so here you can do like the title. So let's just do hello world, this is a great test. And then let's add in just some special markdown. Let's just grab a picture, right? This one seems fine. And we can copy the image address. So now we have hello world. Now in our Slugify, this is not going to do exactly what we want it to do, right? What I really want it to do is I really want to have like a layout, and then each one of these should just be a file that we pull in is really what I want, right? So we can use the layout support with App Router to do part of that. And I don't need, I think, anything there. So it's just going to end up being a lot of pages otherwise, right? So if we go back to our, we need to restart our dev server. So this is going to load up like the slug itself, right? So this is the blog slug page. So here's our blog slug page, and we're gonna pull in that. And the question is, can I dynamically read what I need it to read? And I think the answer is we should probably just statically build all these. So let's go back to here. And what we want to do is we want to do some static rendering. And so for our blog, we want to render all of the pages, right, during build time, because we're going to have all the MDX files here. So we don't need to do any of this at runtime, and that means they're going to be super fast to deliver, and we can just statically host them. So we're going to use, we don't need to use any of the dynamic functions. What we want to do is do our static generation. And I'm wondering where they're going to tell me how to do that. So I want to define all my routes with generating my static parameters. So to generate the routes at build time, okay, so we don't need to do this. Instead, what we want to do, right, is like read in all of the files. So let's see if Copilot can help us out here. Read in the files from blog and use the file name as the slug. We can actually just do all this, right, with and so you okay. So generate static params should do all this for this page. And so now our param should have what we expect, which should be the slug. So if we do build, we should start seeing some of this. And so we might need to, this is gonna be slug, let's see. That's gonna be probably the wrong directory, right? We need this to be slug, which I don't think actually. No, we do want it to be slug. Yeah. Kind of want like blog. Content. And so all of our content can go in here. And now I need to I am still on the file converter JStar. We are building the blog for the file converter itself. So I think we can use next dynamic here, or we can just maybe import it. Directly. So once we get our params in, we're building out the blog section and we're using MDX and everything to help do that. Type error. All right, so we need to know what directory we're in when this is being run. So to figure that out, console.log current directory, right? So this might be the root, so we might need to do like app blog slug content, right, in order to do this, or just append this into this. So we just need to get some extra information here. So let's see, current directory, it's building within the .next server app blog slug, which should be okay for this. Let's see if we can do that. And then here we should be able to and then like append the slug. Okay, let's see. Not liking that. How runs in prod? It. Interesting, it's not pulling in the content folder. So maybe what if we just next.js that's not the problem. This is the page router. How is the converter service running in prod? So it runs, it's a Next.js app, so that just runs on Vercel in production. And then the conversion service behind the scenes, this guy, the actual thing that like runs through and loops forever and does the conversions, that's running on DigitalOcean. And so it just checks the database for any file conversions, pulls down the files from S3, runs the conversion, and then puts them back. And while that happens, the user interface says like, hey, is there anything new for me that I need to show my users? So that is how we do it. Yeah, no, I don't want that. Okay, so what we want is probably that. Let's try that instead. Just figuring out, right? When we read our content, and we can probably move the content up to the top level. When we read in whatever the content is, we need to do this all from wherever the process is running, and that will allow us to do things in a kind of nicer relative direction. So what might be best is going to be, instead of having this in the app directory, moving the content all the way up to like the top level. And probably just naming it like blog. All right, so checking. Okay, so the current directory is much nicer, projects converter. So that's our current directory. So when we go to read this, we can do process current working directory, and we should use join really as the way to do this from path. And now instead of content, it's just going to be blog, right? So that should give us all the files, and then we can do console log and just log out what the files are, right? So these are all the MDX files in the blog directory during build time. And hopefully this will now allow us to do what we want it to do. Okay, okay. Current working directory converter blog. I would have thought this would have joined it with the segment. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Node. That's what I thought that did, but yeah. Okay. Alrighty. We successfully built, so our parameters did work as expected. So up here, we got our files as they were outputted. So this is just hello world MDX. We're returning it without the MDX. We shaved that off. So now the parameters going through we basically have the slug hello world. So now we need to sort of dynamically import const MDX, really like content, right? Okay, so let's see what this gives us. Okay, so cannot find module hello world MDX. Does it tell us what path it just tried to do there? Because it should have gone all the way up to the top to blog hello world.mdx. But I imagine this could be a problem. I imagine actually, as I'm running through and doing this, putting great effort into your videos, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. They have an app directory MDX example, and see, they're just loading it directly from the route, right? So hello world page, which, like, I don't know, we could do, but I'm wondering if there's an easier way to do this. So this is a message server component, and then they just read in, right? Import content from MDX, right? So they just read it in, and then you have this content. So content, read content, import MDX. What I want is to see what people are doing to try and solve this little problem. So this is kind of what we're talking about, right? Dynamic MDX component to reproduce, make a directory. When dynamically loading MDX while running it with Turbo, but we're not doing it with Turbo. So I'm wondering if we can just do this and have it work sort of as we want. Right, so test this. Lots of just testing, iterating, building, trying to do exactly what we want. Now the other way to do this, which is like not so much work, is just instead of having this be a parameter, right, that we're generating statically, just have every page be a route with the MDX and use a layout to go around it. So that's what we'll do if we can't get this to work. But this is going to be much fewer files and like directories, and I feel like it's going to be much cleaner. Okay, so this content looks like it's actually pretty good. So here's our blog slug page, right? And so if we go to if we run our dev server, this is going to not do everything at build time, right? It's going to generate them during runtime. So if we now go here, we should have hello blog. And if we now go to the blog page itself under slug, it's going to pass in the parameters and try and load that. And so only hello world should properly work here. So if we do hello world, okay, we got the blog slug page, it didn't crash. This is a good start. And that's fine. And so now we can add in the content itself, right? And so if we do content, cannot find module, all right. So close. It didn't actually do anything until we loaded in the content. Let's take a look right here, see if we missed anything. Document 3 renders document 1. So let's go back to dynamic here. We don't need a suspense. Dynamic header must be explicitly written. It can't be a template nor a variable. Okay. Well, we are using a template. I wonder if this will work if we didn't use a template. I'm curious if we're like close, but that's going to be an issue. Can't resolve ... blog hello world MDX. All right, so that didn't work regardless, right? And this goes up one level, slug to blog. Does it need to be up one more? So it does. Here's our picture. Ooh, okay, so just to check our sanity, right? If we added back in params.slug here, looks like it's working to me. Does it work if we build it? Give this a little go, and then we're gonna have to push it and see if this works on Vercel as well to see if it actually works, even though their docs stated it doesn't. So here we have blog slug, and it says it is automatically generated as static with get our props, and we have blog hello world. Okay, let's try this. Let's go ahead and push this. So we changed a bunch of stuff and added, so let's just do feature first iteration of blog. Okay, love it, love it, love it, love it. Let's see if that works. Go to recastfile.com and we'll refresh this in a second. We don't have any links to it yet, which is good because this is ugly, but it might be the very beginning of how we can get this to work, which means when we're generating blog posts, right? Take a step back and we're like, okay, spending an enormous amount of time trying to make this thing nice, but that means you can just drop a file into this blog directory and it'll turn into a blog post on the next deploy because of how this is all being built and generated dynamically, which is exactly where we want to be in terms of like simplicity, right? So this is feeling really, really good. I'm gonna open up my GitHub repo on the side here, and it's still building. So we have a couple minutes before that's ready to go. So assuming this works, and it works on Vercel, right? Testing in production. Then what we're going to have to do is build out some of this layout and make it a little nicer. So let's go back to our dev server. And I like to, whenever I'm like, okay, cool, here's like what this looks like, right? It doesn't look like a lot. We want to understand like what other people are doing and kind of borrow some of their styling. So there's a couple things that I've seen that I liked. First, let's go check out Stripe, because Stripe is my favorite and they always do amazing things. So I want like the Stripe blog, which, man, I don't even, resources blog. There we go. So again, stripe.com/blog. So they have this little title here. We could probably make ours a little bigger. They have, I don't know, their header, big, key post up top. And then they have a bunch of posts, right? A bunch of stuff kind of focusing on various different topics. We're not going to go quite so intricate. However, what we can take away here is we have like a little excerpt, a link to the blog post, obviously. And here they have like a tag of some sort. They also have the date it was posted, and they have the author. So these are all good things to have. So if we click into it, this is like the page itself. Here we have blog engineering. They have their entire line thing going on. It's a little hard to see on stream, but if you like zoom in, they have these little dashed lines everywhere. And it, is just kind of their style that they have going on, which is really, in fact, they do a fantastic job with making this look good. But basically, we have a title of the blog post. We have the date it was posted, and we have the author name. And here we have like their department or division, and we have a little picture. It also is a link to themselves. So if we wanted to like, check you out and see kind of what it is, I don't want to do that. We could go ahead and like follow them on social, which is always a nice little perk. And then of course you have like the blog post, which has some images and is just basically a normal post. And then at the bottom, they have a little just stay connected, subscribe to RSS. So they have a feed.rss and some other cute little things. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something similar. Let's see, Recast. Resend is another startup that I've looked at recently. They do emails. Woo! They have a blog. Their blog is a little simpler. They just have this grid layout. Again, title, date, author, and you can click into it. You have title. Here they have a subtitle, author, and the date, and then you have the content below. So why this matters is it's going to determine what sort of metadata we need about our blog post. And we need to be able to capture that metadata so we can use it outside of the article. So the article is going to focus on the content itself, and then the metadata is going to be something that we can post sort of in a whole bunch of little places around the article. So let's see, our build has finished. Let's go to Recast, refresh. Let's check our network just because things are going to explode. Go to /blog to be like, yes, this worked. It did. And then go to /hello world, right? And this should be statically built and visible. It's perfect. It's a beautiful picture of food. I love it. So take a step back, figured all that out. Now we can focus on making this look good and proper and excellent. So the first thing we need to consider is we should probably have a layout because that's going to define like the layout of the page. And we can borrow the definition of this layout, although it will not be called root layout. It will be the blog layout. And we will return, let's do main and then just children for right now. This will probably need to have things like what we want the navigation to be, to go back, our top header, all of that jazz. But for right now, we can just go back and refresh. And now when we look at our elements, we now have a main inside a main because our page also had main, which it doesn't need anymore because we moved that to the layout. So we now just have our main. Perfect. So what this should have is the article HTML. And then we need to start filling in some of this metadata, right? We need title, date, author, etc. So there's a couple ways we can do this. We have the file that we're loading. And so we're going to want to pull out some of this information. And so from content, right, we are outputting content log. So the content is this whole function, but it also has other properties. So it's a component, but it can have properties. And so the best way to do this with our blog is going to be saying export meta. And this is going to be the meta tag that we can read in. So let's borrow from Copilot what I just tossed in here. What is it? It's the 8th, the 15th. So that's the date in ISO 1806. 8601. So we're just gonna borrow, the ability to do 2023 0815. Let's see if this breaks everything, but I don't think it should, as long as this is properly formatted. Tags we're not gonna do for right now. This is going to be like an excerpt, which is a weird word to say a lot. And we'll just write some more content here. And what we want to do is we want to remove the actual title. Okay, let's see if this works at all. Okay, no. Expected, that got meta. So if we go look at the MDX, I swear they had this in here. They talk about front matter, right? They do export. Oh, did I miss the const? Nice. Okay, that works. So now we have this sort of like front matter meta object that we're exporting. And in theory, we can just read this right out from this content that we've imported. So let's try this by reading meta. Currently says undefined. Let's make sure we've refreshed. Let's see if we can make this work the way we want it to. Right, so in the docs, they have this. You can export a meta object. Doesn't actually say how to read that meta object. But let's see what we got here. So we still have, we have a loadable component as our main content. It has a display name, which is nothing special, and our meta is still undefined. So export const meta, that's what we want. We want this to contain the metadata. Author should be kind of excerpt. Is that really how you spell that, friends? Yup. Okay. So let's see. So this is what we want, and we're importing it. Now we can just read this out with like a regular expression, but in theory, you can just do like content, but maybe because we're loading it dynamically, we're not successfully loading in the actual meta as a part of what we're loading in here. Let's see if it's in there anyway, if we stringify what we're looking for. Refresh. No, undefined. Alrighty, so let's see if the internet can help us here. Next.js, MDX import metadata dynamic. Not quite what we're looking for. Don't need the wrapper. Here they have, right, export const meta, which is what we want, but we're not seeing how or when they're pulling it in. I was able to import metadata like this. Require? Let's just play around with this real quick. So instead of using import, they used require, which to me seems suspect, but it's worth a shot. So So here's the data object, default and meta. So if you do .meta, does that work? Holy cow, it does. Is this good? I don't know. I don't know if this is good. Await import. It didn't work when I had await import front matter, even though they both resolved to the same thing. Blog posts. Okay. Just curious what other people are doing here. MDX post title. They just have the post data, which they're returning. So they're get static props, but we didn't get static paths, right? I don't know if we even have. We don't have any more. Right, so get generate static params. Get static paths replaced with generate static params. That's all there is, because you can just look stuff up. In the app directory, static params behave similar to static paths, simplified API running route parameters. That's it. Return is an array, blah, blah, blah. It's just, right, ID. Hello, Eduardo. Maybe try const metadata await get static props. We're just generating the static params, right? Because we're in the app directory now, Tommy. So when we're in the app directory, right, generate the get static props no longer exists. That's gone. We just have to generate the static parameters. And that's nominally fine. We just don't get like props anymore. So we could do like get post sort of thing. Like we can abstract some of this out, which we certainly can do. Yeah, but I think this is gonna be kind of what we're doing for right now, just to make sure it works. Again, using require here feels a little iffy, so I'm wondering if there's just like an await import that we can do to actually also do this, like console.log await import.meta sort of thing. This is like test. But that's getting undefined, even though some people mentioning here, like the wait import worked, but I don't know if this person's getting the metadata. It's like this person said front matter, which they might be using actual front matter to do this, maybe not. Right, it didn't work when I had, but they used this sort of line. But they're in the pages directory, so some of this just like might not make sense, right? So here they're doing the same thing. They're awaiting the importing. So I think for us, the way to go is to use this required in, which has the metadata on it. Are you looking at page router docs instead of app router docs? Well, here, what I was just looking at was like the migration guide. I believe. Go away, you. From the pages to the app directory, right? Because a lot of the stuff in the app directory is so new that not everyone has tried to do all these silly things. So like their MDX guide here is kind of light on like, oh, it's so easy if you just want a file that's like .mdx, we made that easy. But then whenever we're like, okay, well, we actually want to like import that into our code, right? What does that look like in the app router here? So like we can't just do this because this entire thing is dynamic, right? And we're not doing it remote, we're just doing it like dynamically. So like this front matter, it's like, it's not front matter, it's just an export, which is what we're doing, but then reading it in is trickier than just importing it. You know, whatever. The fun part of engineering, right, is just working through these problems bit by bit by bit. And like I sit down and I'm here, and for these sorts of live streams, I don't have like all the code prepared. It's not like we're just copying and pasting stuff in. I have the idea of what we want to do, and then we have to go through and build it. And so we just need to figure out exactly how it works. So now that we have meta here, we can kind of simplify this, and we can just do meta. So now we have the metadata. And so now for this, we can do meta.title. And to make this probably a little nicer, let's do, oh no, we're gonna read in all these, never mind. Delete under that. We'll just do here, type meta, and this is going to be, right, this meta, so string, this is a string, and a string. And what we also should have is, let's say, author, which is like name, and we'll do an image to the author. Change your docs app router in the top left. Okay, yes, I see this. That was jumping around between too many documentation pages too quickly. So here we can do meta is the type meta, which it's currently not because we don't have these in our blog. So let's go ahead and add Ethan Mick, and good gracious, I guess, an image to me. Let's do my Twitter account. Can we just like grab that real quick? Oh no, they block everything. God, Twitter's awful. All right, whatever. That'll be blank for now. I don't just have like a static image of myself on the internet. Who would? Who would? So now we can do meta.title for the blog slug page, and we probably will want to pull out some of this because we're going to want it on the blog page itself as well. Content and stringify content. And we can do, we'll do the meta.author.name here as well, right? So now we go look at this. We're missing a comma. Yep. All right, so hello world, Ethan Mick, this is a great test. Perfect. So we no longer want that. We no longer want this. Now we have the title, we have this, and a great test. Okay, let's jump into our layout. And we want to go back to our page, wrong page, our page, right? Here we have the header. So let's go ahead and add that. So we want the header, and then we want our main content, and the main content below it. Let's do put this in a container. We might want to change how big it is. So I have a container utility, which makes it a max of 7 width. We'll get back to that, or, you know, and puts it in the middle with some safe padding. So save our layout. All right, we're getting there, right? So hello world. Now this is just our title, so we can do some work here. But instead of doing all that work myself, there's a couple ways we can do this, but I think what I want to do is I want to jump into Tailwind. And we want to use Tailwind Typography. So Tailwind Typography is this lovely little Tailwind plugin which enables you to have nice prose very quickly. And so to install, we will go ahead and add this. And then we need to make sure we add it as a plugin to Tailwind. So here's our third plugin. Excellent. And now we can do prose, and we can make prose bigger on larger screens if we want. So this is kind of like what it looks like right now, which obviously needs a little help. It needs to be smaller, it needs to be more focused. The title needs to be bigger. I need a picture, and we need to also put the date into this as well. So let's do that here. And restart the dev server. Hi, Alex. Just to make sure we have all this stuff. All right, so we'll make some of that prettier. This is okay, good. So now we can go and on our article, we can add prose. And now this is what it looks like. So instantly we have it kind of updated and changed. I guess we might need to actually make a background color there. So large text, right? Everything has been kind of like changed stylistically. The fonts changed, the colors changed, everything has been changed and updated. I'm gonna zoom out all the way so you can kind of give an understanding of what this looks like. So we might pull some of this out, but this is like the content part of the entire thing now. And we probably just want to have the article centered. So we can add MX Auto. And now we're like centered within our centeredness. And for the hello world title, for titles out here, we'll just do text center. Because I'm a sucker for center text. And so now we have everything. And for our class, let's go ahead for the main here. Let's just give it a little more margin at the top of the page, right? So we want to center this and probably add a picture and update the date. But now we have sort of this, relatively decent looking blog. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT over here on the side and say, generate a random blog post in Markdown for a demo. And so ChatGPT now is just kind of chatting. I think it's talking about boosting your morning routine. So this is sort of now what like the content, right, looks like. Live streaming and overcoming problems in real time, having the code repaired. Thank you, Joey. Yeah, it's kind of like extreme coding or like doing leak code, but you're doing it live and everyone can kind of look at you and be like, wow, are you actually good at what you're doing? It's like, well, most of the time I just get to sit here and like think Only a pro works on 4 terminals simultaneously. Thank you. Yes, that is what we use tmux for over here. So this is now really kind of looking pretty good. We'll do the footer later because the footer is going to be the same thing across the rest of the site, right? So you can now like click the logo to go back, and you have the home page, and now you have like our blog page. And so let's go and take another dive at, let's see, so June 12th, 2023. We should be able to use a date formatter to get that. We wanted that to be a little prettier, right? So we can create our date from this. Obviously React doesn't like that. So date formatter local. We don't need to use anything crazy. We can just use the international API here. Right, to local date string. Probably want more specific, right? I liked, yeah, here we go. So to local date string, first parameter undefined because that'll just use the default. And then we want these 3 parameters. Wow, please. August 14th, 2023. Was it actually August 14th? I thought I wrote the 15th in my blog thing. August 15th. August 14th. I would expect that UTC wouldn't actually make a difference there because it's just like the day. Okay, chat. Why is my date clearly the 15th? Now my local date is clearly the 14th. I have no time set on the date. So it must be setting the time to be all zeros, and all zeros UTC means my local thing is going to be on the 15th. That's my guess. Good old JavaScript times. Never been a calendar system again. Yeah, seriously. Date UTC. I want to convert the date into UTC, but I don't want to pass anything in. I don't want to convert it to UTC string. Do I have to do that? I thought there was a way just to be like, this date time is in UTC. But I guess that was like when you created it. Automatically gives you methods. God, it's never homework dates. Well, whatever date we write into our source, I feel like I want that to be the one that's respected. So there's, I wonder if I can just, we'll see what happens if we quickly, well, I think we know. Right, so if we do something like this, right, first of all, if we just do that, that should actually make it the 15th, right? Because we added the time. It's always better to not have them at all. Guys, we can't not have dates on the blog posts. People are gonna be like, when was this written? So now if we set everything to 0, it's August 14th, right? So if we just set this to like noon, it's August 15th. Is that the best way to do it? Who knows? Right, so the Z here should be saying it's UTC time, and so it's like written on the 15th noon. So we're gonna go with that for right now. Just right recently. This was written just a few days ago, June 12th, 2023. So that's actually now, where am I, right? August 15th, 2023, which is excellent. I like the title and then having this under here, and then we should have, right, our little avatar followed by the name off to the side. Do they really need to know dates? People are brutal. Do I have a picture of it myself? No, I don't. All right. Let's go ahead and just copy this, which is going to be my avatar for right now. Maybe this should be a picture of my face, but it's my favicon too, so I don't want that to be my face. Oh my gosh, you people, my friends, you are brutal. So we can now go to our page and we have my name, right? This is going to be a little, so we can do an image. Really, we want like an avatar. I don't know if I really want to be using Next UI. I was trying it out, but I'm not totally sold on Next UI in terms of what I want this to be. So I also started using Shad UI. So now I'm just like all over the place and it's a giant mess. So we're just gonna use next image until I can figure it out. So the source here is going to be the meta author image, right? And that's my, and then we can do alt, and this is going to be exactly the meta author name. The authority and trust, because you can see the last time blog was updated and if it's relevant to do. It also helps with SEO, right? Because things that are more relevant are going to be something that various search engines will rank higher, and then they'll fall off in relevancy over time. So the whole reason we're building this is for SEO purposes. So because of that, we kind of need the dates to be working. I know, no one wants the dates to be working, but it needs to happen. So here we can just do some flex and we'll do items center to get them all centered. And then we can move my name right into here. We'll probably want a little bit of padding on the left to kind of scoot that stuff over. So let's refresh this and see what we have. Ethanvic is not configured. We have to configure domain, even though this isn't the domain that we want. So you know what we're going to do? We're not going to do that. We're going to just save the image locally for right now. Sure, downloads. Let's do EM. That's me. And then we can fire up this and go to, I almost disconnected my camera. Downloads, EM, and bring this right over and toss it into public. So now we have me. We have a PNG as well. It's all our images. So this can now be simplified to just em.png. Where'd my, oh, it's like, where'd it go? Right here. All right, cool. Let's make that probably, what, bold? Yeah, a little bold. Here we have, this entire thing is, not the entire thing actually, just that, and that's the link. Let's do bold, and let's make the text a little darker. Again, we're fighting some Tailwind Pros stuff, so it might make sense just to move all this out of Tailwind Pros land. But we'll do Vault semi-bold and like text neutral 900, something relatively dark. It's a little aggressive on the darkness scale. And then we want our image to, of course, be more avatar-y. So we'll do rounded full. Perfect. And then we want this all centered. So we can center that. And here we can do a couple things to center it, but these are both block elements, right? So we'll just justify center. All right, is it perfect? Maybe not perfect, but it's not bad. Okay, so the other thing we wanted at the top of our layout, above main, below the header, is going to be a link that goes back. So one of those small things, right? Here you have blog engineering. We probably just do like blog, right? And so we can now just do blog. They have it nice, big, bold, and purple in this case. We're going to want this to be in a container as well, so it matches our container here. You could make this like a navigation thing. And let's just do a little bit of padding around this entire thing, front and back, and then we can just add class name to be font, semi-bold. Needs to be a little bigger. Let's zoom in. Probably could be an arrow or something, but let's just do like text XL. Right, and like hover, underline. We haven't quite figured out the theme we're going for, so some of these colors are a little off, but I think that's going to be okay. In the grand scheme of things, we can simply iterate on like the whole style as we really dial into this entire thing. So, is that perfect? No, there's going to be a blog up here as well, but this is not bad. Again, no footer yet, so to speak, but here we have our hello world and all this. So here is some content that we have, and we go to blog, and now we have an empty blog page. So let's go ahead and save all of what we're doing here because we have it working relatively nicely. So feature test blog page and Tailwind Typography. Oh, thanks to them. Okay, push this. So now we can test that out. Before we go like live, right, we need our blog page. And then we're also, what time is it? We're doing well. We're also going to, depending on order of operations here, build out a RSS feed because we're going to get to that in a second, but we have some fun things planned. So here's our blog page. Stripe's blog has like one big thing at the top, and then they have a list of blog posts with a whole bunch of other stuff. They have images nicely in here. Wow, this goes back a while, September. We're not going to build exactly this, but the high level, right, is like title, excerpt, read more link, author potentially. Resend here. Notably, they don't have a link back to their blog. You just have to click up here. Here, they have like one title up there. And then we have kind of just like a picture, which we should probably have. We currently don't have that, right? We should have a cover image of sorts. So that's something to consider, a cover image. And then we have the title, and we have the author and the date. So we're going to borrow probably something closer to here. If you look on like my blog, we have something similar, right? No date here, but just like, you know, August 11th, the title, how long the reads are. You know, it's relatively straightforward. So then you have some featured stuff here. Here we're using cover images as well for the featured articles. And there are just like, I don't know, a billion sort of blogs you can get inspiration from, but have a lot of the same sort of vibe going on. So I think we're going to just do something kind of similar here where we're going to have like, we're not going to do a featured anything to start because that requires more work. So we'll call this a blog because that's what it is. And I think we just own the blog. And then we will have a list of articles with title, author, date. Right? So let's go, and we need to pull in all that stuff. And this is also going to be generated statically, right? So we can just pull in all the files that we want here. We have to be a little careful with if I do this, does that correctly? We'll give that a try. This should be okay. We're going to read in the directory everything from the blog. So this is going to give us all of the files that we have in that directory. This is going to be a little interesting, right? So what we need to do is we need to read them all in, but we also need to read in the metadata, which really is just what we need to do. So we can read in these files, and then we want to map the file to the metadata. So now that we need metadata in two places, let's go ahead and take out meta here and move it to blog, libblog. So now we need to import it here, which is fine. Now we can import it here easily. Nope, which is good. And so instead of doing all that, we can now just pull in F, right? Which, fine, we'll call it file. And so now we should have the metadata for everything in there, right? So we can just log the meta real quick, save this. Hello and welcome, subscriber to the channel. Check out my Stream Elements dashboard. Can't resolve the blog because this is what we have to be careful of. The relative path is different. Welcome, Fred. If you're watching, I hope you're enjoying. If you're not watching, maybe you watch it later. Hi. Okay. So now we have our metadata, right? Title, date, expert, author. And so what we need to do is we actually need to do a little work on the metadata. So we're going to return the metadata, and then we're also going to take the date and we're going to turn it into an actual date object. Hello, I'm watching. Hi, Fred. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away. Welcome to the channel. I really appreciate you being a new subscriber. So we need to change it into a date because after we do all this, right, we are going to sort them. And we want to sort them so the article names are all just going to be whatever the article names are. And we don't know how the file system is going to read them. And so we want to sort them by the date. And so the most recent date is going to be first, which, I mean, looking at that, that might be correct. Otherwise, we'll flip it around. And so now we have our file. So if we do another file here, let's do test.mdx, and we will copy out the meta. And so here we did today, right? But let's go ahead and do like 10 days ago. Hi, everyone. Markdown, right? We would expect hello world to be the first thing, and then we want the rest of them, the test after that. So console.log, here we can just log the files. And so now hello, I just named them all the same thing, didn't I? Hello test. Make my life easy. So hello world is first, and now test becomes after that, right? So now we have successfully gotten the files and the date we want them to show because we want the most recent posts to be first. And we can't trust the file system to do that. One thing I will say here that we're not going to do, but we might do later, is the date is a little bit unnecessary, because we could just take the last time the file was modified and use that as the date. So instead of having to like put the date in, we could just ask the file system when it was last modified. However, if someone like pulls down the repo and we create all the files and the file system doesn't use like the original modified date, or you like just create a bunch of like zip files and pull it down, all those file modified dates might be different, right? There's so many ways the file system might change the last modified time that if you, let's say you ran a script and it like touched every file and all of a sudden every file had a different modified that date, right? Then it would look like your blog was like instantly updated, and that's not quite what we want. So this is probably safer in the long run to have it like actually coded in there, but you could read the file system itself to say like when it was modified and use that date. So now we can go ahead and let's borrow a little bit from the layout, even though this won't be the exact same sort of thing. So I don't quite want to go crazy on the layout right now. So pull on the header. We don't want that at all. Instead, we want probably all this just to be inside main. And here we'll do blog. Now we can delete this. And now after the blog, we can kind of create our entire little blog section, right? So files, map, file, right? And so the key can be file. Let's call it the title because no titles should be the same. And we want this to be a link, the entire thing, with an href to, the file name, I guess, right? So meta, and now we want the name, which is going to be the slug. So we'll just call that href because then we can pass it right through, right? And that makes sense. And so here we can do, this is no longer really, right? This is kind of like posts. It's not really just a file, it's now the posts. So here we'll also just call this post, title, href, perfect. So we actually don't need that. And we can add in author name, and we can do date. And we just want the same format here. We already created the date, so we don't need to create a new date. All right, so now we have a very basic blog outline. So class, text center, font 2XL, font bold. Hello and welcome to the channel, Monkoba. Oh my God. And Daniel, hello, welcome. Thank you for stopping by, for watching. Hope you enjoy it. We are building a blog. That text needs to be much bigger. Go back. The href is not just this, right? It is actually blog. Okay, well, even that seems a little small. How big are we? Make it a little bigger. So we have our little title, we have my name, and we have this. So we really kind of want like cover images. Otherwise, it's going to be a relatively boring blog going on. Cover images are going to be interesting because I kind of wanted to generate a lot of this stuff with AI tools, and getting images with AI tools is a little tricky. Although there are some other tools that I happen to know that would make that easier. If we just like built out a couple of templates, it would then be pretty easy to like dynamically add text to the templates, which we could do. I don't know if that's good or not. You could just grab a random Unsplash image and like use that. Have you tried Strappy or Sanity? I have not. What's Strappy? Oh, like a headless CMS. I think I've actually looked at Sanity before. The Content Cloud. Yeah, this came up at one point. I haven't used these, although I have been interested in using them. I don't want to introduce like another product into the flow, so I opted to do all this MDX stuff locally. But I think basically the second you start adding in a team of people, these sorts of products are going to be very, very, very useful. If you're just doing stuff on your own, you can probably get away with not doing it. But the second you have multiple people kind of building content, it's going to be much more useful having something like this. So I think they're good tools and probably very useful in the right situation. So we can, let's see, let's just make this a little prettier, just for our sanity, right? Let's do this, and then the title, and then my stuff can be below that, and then, yeah, sure, thanks, Copilot. Good enough, add a dash. Here we'll do, let's do close font semi-bold. Semi-bold's like my favorite font. It's like just a little bold. I mean, it looks bold there, but you know, if you zoom all the way out, it doesn't quite look as bold. In fact, this should probably be right, like font large, text large, font semi-bold. Hello, welcome to the channel. Thank you very much for subscribing. I'm not going to do justice pronouncing the name. So thank you so much. Welcome. If you're watching, I hope you enjoy this. And we're getting there. So we want a little padding around each of these. All right, so we have some work still to do here, but we're getting here. And this is pretty good. Let's see. Let's go ahead and push this. Let's see if my last push built correctly. Yes, it did. Sweet. Okay, so everything is good. So, come on. Git commit feature blog index page. Okay, so now they're links, right? So if you go to the blog, you can now click on either of these and it brings you to the page. You can read it and you can go back. And so now we can probably add something to the top bar, but before we do that, that kind of makes it like public, right? One of the things you can do when you're hacking away and building software is if there's no link to the page, you don't really need to like not push it to production, right? You can push things to prod and test in prod as long as there's no link to get there. And it will take web indexers a very long time to find those sorts of hidden pages, especially if they're not out there for very long. So here we're like pushing our blog to prod, but because there's no link to get there, then we can kind of just leave it hidden and it's not going to be a big deal. So let's go ahead and take a look. We want basically most likely, let's see. I would love X pictures, but until we have pictures, maybe we borrow a little bit here from Stripe. This is zoomed out all the way, right? So big text, excerpt. Right, just want to make this look like a little better for each of our posts. So here we can do like 4XL. Let's see what that looks like. Looks good. And now we can do the meta, the post dot excerpt. And we were gonna want a little more space around all that. So let's do class, give it a little breathing room. Although we can probably just use space here, although we don't know exactly what it's gonna look like yet. So again, text neutral, like 700. Okay. Now we're talking. Not quite there yet. Let's go ahead and move this beneath the title. Let's do space Y4, 2. And now this doesn't need its own spacing. And let's make this text small and just kind of shrink that up a little bit, and something like text neutral 500. It's a little gray. All right. No pictures, but that's not bad. Let's go ahead and push that. Feature blog page styling. It's amazing what imagery does. So if we zoom all the way out again, this is kind of what we have, although we could have more excerpts, obviously. And each of these are our links. So let's go ahead and add something to our header. Close out all that. So in our header, we just kind of have our navigation bar with our logo, and then there's a mobile menu that appears on smaller screens. Let's see, this has actually don't want that because I want this to have its own evenly spaced stuff. So on larger screens, we're just going to want some stuff up here. There will be accounts at one point, but we're not going to be doing that until like we really think that's actually adding a user benefit to the product. So we have a mobile menu, and I think what we're gonna do is do just a regular menu as well, right? And so the idea is that we have a bunch of links that'll appear in either one. I'm using this in two places. This is menu icon. Nope. So let's do const links, and here we can do label blog href blog, and so we can just toss them in. I guess technically they're ordered. And we can just do the link label here. Blog. Bloop. Homepage. Blog. Homepage. Colors. Blog. To Sif, I am doing well. Thank you. So now for our dialogue, instead of having this whole thing, we can actually, we can probably combine these in the future. We're going to change this again at some point, but these can all be here. Oh, we could probably just do flex call, right? For this blog. Does it dismiss? Yeah, it does. Okay, but only if you're on the page. So we're using a dialog for the mobile menu, which is kind of borrowed the idea, not that button, the idea from Stripe, which is they have this sort of like pop-up for their entire menu on mobile. Obviously on a larger screen, they have something different. But if you're on a very small screen, right, how do you have a bunch of links? Instead of doing like, we are using it. But we're using it in places, and we're not using it everywhere. So like Shad has a navigation menu too, right? And then you make it small. You're like, okay, great. And so I don't need necessarily a full navigation menu yet. So this is actually a Shad, right? This is a Shad UI dialog. So I'm playing around with it this way to kind of feel out different ways of perhaps using the components. So there you go. Now we have a blog link. Click it, and we can go to our blog, and nice and good scroll. We have our horizontal, our nice blur and everything still. So this is sweet. Just kind of what we want. You can click a link and go to it. Now you can read this. It's awesome. Obviously it's like big, so that spacing is probably a little aggressive now that I'm looking at it again. So we'll trim that down. What we do. It's my slug page. Oh, that's not our spacing. That's why it's so big. That's just what Tailwind's doing because we added it to the article. Yeah, all right, well, we'll fix that later. Not worth doing something right now. We have to refactor that entire thing. All right, so now we can add blog link to header. All right. 1 o'clock. Let's see. I need to leave at like 3:15 or so. So we have lots of time here to build out the next part of this, which I am pretty excited for. So here we have our blog. We will add in probably cover images at one point. And now the other thing, of course, is like what we truly need is content. So when it comes to content is king, right? We basically just need to have a lot of great things that we're writing. Now for Recast, the nice thing about this is there is a perennial evergreen field of things to write about because people are constantly Googling like convert PNG to everything, right? Or take whatever your pick is. Convert PSD to PNG, like whatever this might be. And right, the thing about this stuff is people want to know how to do it. They want to know how to do it with different tools. They want to know how there's just a billion things about this, for all these sorts of questions, right? If I expand some of them, right? How to transfer free, like blah, 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 blah. Basically, you just have all these questions around file types and pictures and PDFs and documents and all this stuff. Because most of the time this doesn't matter. And then sometimes someone sends you like a pages document, right? So like convert pages to Word. And it's like, oh, right, you sent me like a pages document, which is Mac's text editor. And you're like, I don't have a Mac. So you can either like respond back to them and be like, hey, like send me something else, which you can do, it's fine. But if you don't need to like do a lot of editing on the document and you just want to read it, you're like, really, I just like send me a PDF is really what I want. So I want a pages to PDF converter so you can just take this file I sent you, threw it up and did it, right? And so that's not only the problem we're solving here, right? We want to solve that quickly and effectively and securely and privately and just make a great, great way to do it. But we also, the content around that is like, hey, here's how you can do that. And then to go deeper in that content, right? It's here's how you can do that with tools X or tools Y or tools Z. And here's how to install them, and maybe here's what else they're good for, right? And so for each of the tools we end up integrating into Recast to do these conversions, so like right now we're using Image Magic behind the scenes to do the conversion. For every one of those tools, we now have endless content, so to speak, about like how you should do that. And not only how do you do this on a Mac, but how do you do it on a Windows computer? How do you do it on Ubuntu? How do you do it on Debian, right? You can target like lesser known aspects of the entire thing because it's just an endless way of writing content. You can just like constantly churn out content to be like, how do I do this? Now, this content is useful and that's nice and good, but it's also kind of like low-hanging fruit, relatively boring content to like write a ton of. And off topic, how do you approach a problem and think of a solution for it? Hey, then first time watching live, excited to learn from you. Thanks, Tigra. To see off topic, approach a problem and think for a solution for it. At this point in my career, I've seen a lot of problems, so that just helps. You can like fall back and think about things you've come across already. I think number one, whenever you're kind of approaching a problem, is really, really how do you fundamentally understand the problem? Like, what is the problem and what's the root problem? And this can be true for like code. A lot of times people will spend endless hours fixing something that isn't the root problem. And so a huge part of engineering and debugging is like getting to the root problem, truly understanding what the thing is that's wrong and not just treating symptoms of what's wrong. And so being able to go deeper and deeper and deeper until you really believe you're like, okay, this is the root problem. Nothing else could possibly be it. Like, this is what it is. Then you know exactly what you're trying to solve. And once you know exactly what you're trying to solve, I think that's actually the hardest part's already done. Because then you can generally start looking up like, okay, we know exactly what the problem is. So where do we want to go and how do we get there? And what are those solutions? And that just requires probably talking with team members, looking stuff up, truly kind of doing a little bit of research to figuring out like how to get there, or just, hacking around a little bit if you're doing something on a smaller scale and, building the solution and trying a couple things to see what works best. Do you think algos help in solving problems? Like algorithms? I think it depends on the problem, I guess. So like knowing a bunch of low-level algorithms or a bunch of algorithms in general is very useful for solving a set of problems, right? But it's not necessarily the useful thing for knowing like, how do I get more people to come to my website? Right? Like those are very different problems. And so like algorithms are very useful for solving the set of problems that you need to know algorithms for. Like what might that be? It's like, well, if you're doing anything, I guess, much more computer science-y on the side of the spectrum of engineering, right? Where you're generally caring a lot about memory usage or memory space and big O and understanding like, yes, you're dealing with lots of data potentially. So the speed of what your execution is matters a lot. So doing something n or log n is infinitely better than doing something n squared or worse, right? And so then caring about the execution, how you're doing it, does matter a lot. But I think you also get into other problems pretty quickly where it's like, okay, you now need to handle a large amount of data. You're not necessarily thinking in algorithms, you're thinking in distributed systems. And that's like a very different set of problems, right? Like you need to think about the architecture and the maintenance and how you're going to build out and handle a distributed system and logging and everything. So it depends a lot on like the exact problems you're looking at. So the exact problem we're looking at is I don't necessarily want to write a billion blog posts all the time about how to convert a PNG to JPEG. Also, you want one blog post for every single one of these conversions because SEO, right? So I want like a blog post like, how can I convert a JPEG to a PNG? Or JPEG to a GIF? Or GIF to WebP? Or WebP to ICO, right? Like all of these can be blog posts because then you can talk about the tool and the command and whatever and like the benefits. And like, yeah, they'll all probably be pretty similar. But that's why you don't really want to write them all yourself. But you know what does really want to write all these themselves? ChatGPT. Or your favorite GPT thing, ITES. Thank you. Yes, we, besides having my nice pretty button here, basically what we have going on behind the scenes is we have blobs of color which move generatively across the screen, and they're alive. They just constantly kind of move around. So if anyone just like lands on the page and lets the blobs move, they just kind of have fun. I think we could add a couple more blobs. I think it's a little too much white space. I think we could use a little more color, but I don't control them. They just do their thing. They just live. Which is awesome. This text also very subtly changes color as well. So here's the plan for content, and this is what I think will be fun. So we're going to, because like I have a full-time job doing other things, right? We're going to lean into artificial intelligence tools and let them do the bulk of the work here. And so I can focus on like building out Recast, but the AI tools in the background are going to be generating the content. And I think if people are looking at like building businesses and selling things, right, which is the goal of this series, is you shouldn't be afraid to try out some of this stuff, and see if it can like materially make what you're doing faster and better. So here's the goal. The goal is I am going to somewhere, somehow stage content. So let's do in like Notion. I don't know exactly the best way I want to do this yet. That's why we're here, right? So here's my Notion, and what I kind of want to do is I kind of want to build a new like table, let's say, and we'll create a new, and let's call it recast content, right? And so what I want is I want to basically say, here's going to be the title. I don't think, maybe tags can be okay, but then like prompt, maybe. So the goal is, this is Notion, right? So can I zoom in a little bit for everyone? Woo, so big. So this will be how to convert a PNG to JPEG with image magic, right? And so now this could be different or whatever. And tags, we don't need to use them right now. But the goal is going to be create this. Let's call this our source of truth. Thought of releasing an API for converting files? Yes, Tusif, definitely. That's technically there is an API for converting files. We just don't have it documented. 100% we're going to do that. We will document the API, we will release it, we will let other people use it so people can programmatically convert files. And then we're going to, I think we're going to use our own API to, I imagine doing some fun things where like you could have a bot on Twitter and people could like at you and be like, convert this file with a link to it, and we would like fetch the file, get it, convert it, and then send a link back and be like, here's your converted file, right? So we can do all that with the API, which I think would be cool. So here's our Notion table, and we're going to use the Notion API to pull in this information. And probably we want a column for like a checkbox for, I don't know, complete, maybe. Okay, so we're gonna pull in this information, and once a day we're gonna have a cron job that triggers, and it's going to pull the first thing in this table, so we can just reorder it if we want to. Let's just hide this right now. So we could like reorder it, right? So here we could do how to convert, we'll just do something totally different for show, MP4 to MOV with FFmpeg, right? And so it's like, oh, I want that first actually, like move that here. It's like, oh, actually no, we'll like, yeah, we'll do this. Like once a day, call it like 6 a.m. local time. It's going to, a bot's gonna reach out, it's gonna grab the first record in this data source. It's going to take this prompt and it's going to feed it in to ChatGPT. And so here, right, we need to figure out exactly the best way to do this, but here's our ChatGPT, right, GPT-4. And so it'll feed in this prompt, and we'll probably have some pretext to be like, write a professional blog post about the following. Keep it concise and professional. Format it in Markdown. Now the formatting here, do not include a title, only include the content. right? The idea is like this prompt we can feed directly into our AI engine. You could use something else if you don't want to use OpenAI, that's fine. And so we're going to fire this off. We're going to do this via the API. Oh my God. So already we have to change our prompt because ChatGPT is like, certainly, I'm so happy to help you. And it gave me like it gave me a title. It gave me a link, question mark. And it talks about a whole bunch of stuff, right? So, okay. But here's basically the idea of the blog post, like the essence of the blog post. And so we're gonna use the API to make this. And then this then is going to, we're gonna use the API to turn into a markdown file. The markdown file, we're going to use the GitHub command line to create this post, and it will make a pull request for us with this post. And that will give us the chance to edit and tweak and improve the language and make sure the blog post is up to the standards of the author. And then once the editing has been completed, we can simply merge the pull request and it will be posted on our site. And then once it's posted on the site, it's going to update the RSS feed, which we'll implement. And then we can have like Zapier listen for RSS feed changes and automatically post things to all of our social media accounts for the business. So now we have like this pipeline, right, of every morning we will wake up, or every, I don't know, twice a week, 3 times a week, like pick your cadence. Every couple days we'll wake up to a new blog post that's been mostly written. We'll go through, do the editing, clean it up, make sure it's like correct and works and didn't hallucinate a bunch of stuff. And then we can post it. Like the bulk of the work has been done, right? All we have to do is come up with, you know, the name of the blog post and let's say the prompt. If we want the prompt to be different than the title. So if you want like extra information here, right? And then it'll show up as a file here, do the editing, post it, and then it'll post to all our socials. And so we'll have social media accounts for X, hashtag Twitter. I want to do social media accounts for like YouTube and have videos for this sort of stuff. It won't be my face probably because like this much social interaction with the internet just ends up taking a lot out of me, and I like want to think about how pretty I am and all this stuff. So I'll just do like voiceovers of like, here's how to do it, right? So like that sort of content will be like, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes long, but people search YouTube for this sort of stuff, right? So you do the same thing on YouTube, you do it on TikTok, you post the videos, you post on Twitter, you post on Facebook, you post on Instagram, I guess, right? Just like hit up all the socials. There's probably some tool chain that can like convert a blog post into an Instagram thing. But the point is you automate all of this. We don't do it all ourselves. We're engineers. We want to be building the product. But we're also engineers building a business, right? You can't just separate those two and be like, I'm just going to go in a corner. It's like, no, build the system that will enable you to build your business for you automatically. So that's the content side of it. And then, you know, we'll just probably make funny memes for the rest of our sort of advertising and marketing, because we want people to be able to convert anything to anything. And so when people convert a PDF to an MP3 file, I think that's going to be pretty funny, and we're going to post about it. So that's the goal. Let's see here. So to do all this, we can do this in a bunch of places. You could do this in a GitHub action, which honestly isn't the craziest thing I've heard. You can do this as a cron job with Vercel as well. Also isn't the craziest thing I've ever heard. Basically, what we need to do is we need to use the Notion API to read from the database. And then we want to get the first record. We could like use a traditional database and stuff for this, right? We could use the database I'm using here, but the idea is that because you're using Notion for like your content, it's very easy to add to it. And so you can just sit down once a week and like bang out the 3 articles you want written. It takes like 20 seconds probably to think of like the titles and any prompt information and just be like boom, boom, boom. And then you don't need to think about it again. You don't need to like edit your database or anything. So we're using like Notion as like the content database. Get the first record, send that record to ChatGPT API and get a markdown post. And that's just like what, a curl request that you could do. Doing all this in Bash kind of seems super annoying, so I don't think I want to do that just like as a Bash script. You could, I mean, if you're like a crazy Bash ninja, but I think doing this in code might be a little nicer. The question is like, do we want this code to be run by Vercel? Does it matter? I don't think it matters. Send the record chat, get a markdown post, create a new blog post in blog with the content and create a pull request for it. Doing it in GitHub means that this part of this thing is going to be easier because you can just pull down this repo and create a new blog post exactly with like what you want. So that might be good. So the question I have, yo, front forum focus, what's up? GitHub action, I want to run, I think it's called npm, God, what is this? NX? No. npm Google run Node.js script. There's a way to do this. ZX, there it is. I knew this existed. Let's go. Nice. Building SaaS launching soon. Yeah, we're doing the content side of this, which I think is important for people building out, you know, an audience and getting people into their you know, their entire world. Okay, so we're gonna try this. I don't know if this is the best way to do this, but this is a tool I've used a long time ago, and it's pretty cool. I hadn't started. Oh, I'm not logged in. That's why. Never mind. So ZX. Right, Bash is great. When it comes to writing more complex scripts, we prefer more convenient language. So JavaScript is fantastic. So we want to basically do this. We're going to like run this sort of stuff. So this is going to be sweet. Love it. Have a podcast. Yeah, podcasts are also great forms of content. If you're just like a domain expert in whatever you're doing, you basically just like sit down and either by yourself or with a friend, like talk. And I think a lot of that is just like excellent content. So what is this? Oh, I don't know. We don't need that. Hey Ethan, Aiden, what's up? Finally got to watch your live streams real time. Love what you're doing. Thank you so much. We are building out the content. So what I'm gonna try and do here is, there's like maybe a better place to put this, but we're going to just create a new file, and it's going to be, we're gonna do this like, we'll do .bin, and we'll call it content. So I like dot files to just like hide a bunch of stuff. And so this is like the bin file. right? So now we can make it executable. We're probably going to have to install this as a dependency. So cd.bin, and now we can, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff here that's good. That just make writing scripts, you know, a little nicer. I'm curious off the bat if they have, well, you can execute scripts as Markdown. Jeez, that's crazy. TypeScript. Okay, so we can import, looks like our ZX global. So maybe that should be just fine. Oh, you're saying I can maybe just write it in TypeScript? Set type module and package. You can execute remote scripts. So I think what we just want to do basically, this is a very fun package, but I again, haven't used it in forever. All right, so I guess this is JavaScript these days, isn't it? Right. So let's see. pnpm install ZX global. So this will install this utility globally. We're going to need to install this in our action, our GitHub action. So don't forget to do that. And now I should be able to run like just content, right? And it should just work. So let's just do console. Oh my God, console. Hello world. So now we can just run it. Sure, I did mean that. I didn't want to import that though. I wonder if it's importing it locally. Because this is kind of saying, let's just see if there's something here about, before I fix it myself, pnpm. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, let's see if I install it with, what do we got here? If we do npm install, so npm owns it. No, didn't like that. Let's see if we can just install it as a dev dependency here. Oops, add. Okay, so that worked. So now we're up and running, at least locally. We'll have to go through all this on GitHub. Building my MVP, a platform to connect people working on SDGs. That sounds awesome. I hope it all goes well and great, and that you build something that people love using. So we can get the environment variables. So what we're going to need is we are going to need like Notion API token, let's call it, and then OpenAI API token, and then we may or may not need the GitHub API. The GitHub like command line tool is already installed, on all actions. So if you run this within a GitHub action at the scheduled time, we shouldn't actually need to care too much about that. So let's see. I've not worked with the Notion API at all. So that's going to be the first thing that we're going to want to do. Maybe we can chat our way through this, which might be interesting. Okay, how do I get a new chat? What is this? Show history, send feedback, clear. Okay. Right, I should be able to just like import any modules I want, right? To install missing dependencies automatically. Interesting. The default GitHub action runner comes with npx installed, so we can run npx zx and then await. That's interesting. I think we can just available without importing inside other scripts, yeah. So I haven't used like this whole magic Copilot, start chat, explain list, fix list, generate docs. You can generate tests. It's amazing. Write JS to fetch from the Notion. There's like a Notion library for this. Notion API JS library. There's got to be something, right? Found it. New B2B SaaS business going really well. 200 on Upload's product menu registrations. Dude, that is awesome, Aiden. B2B, I think, is definitely the way to go in terms of like building out products. Vote me also. Go ahead and send me. Apparently you can't post links in YouTube live stream. So if you find me on Twitter or use my email, you can hit me up and I'll take a look. More than happy to see what you people are building. And also, if you want, I send out a newsletter every week about like SaaS and building SaaS and stuff like that. So if you want me to, I can share what you're working on in that newsletter, which I think is just, super cool. So let's go ahead and add the client. Get the Notion API token. So API reference. So I want to say I can just use fetch the first record in a Notion database using the library. The database. Do you have to get like the ID? Database. Database objects. Blah, 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 blah. How do I, let's see, all databases. Can I fetch like per database? Database properties? For the page property values, the API treats database rows as pages. Oh, interesting. Query a database. Retrieve a database. So we need the database ID, and then we can get like a page, retrieve a page. Just sent you a DM. Awesome, thank you. I will take a look after the stream. Okay, how do I get my database ID? That's now what I need. Go here, click this, lock database, copy link. That probably has an ID in it, right? Just wondering if there's a better way than copying the link. It's like a properties, description, name, share. Who here is a master of the Notion SDK? All right, well, that has something in it. That looks like it could be what I need. The database ID is, let's try that. Good luck, Copilot. We'll see if we can actually use you. If not, we're just gonna use ChatGPT. Database ID. Oh, it tells me right there. No one saw that. Okay, Notion get first row of database. Notion API. Result does not support Notion databases, query, database ID, filter. Okay, to fetch the first record in Notion database, you can use the query. Let's see if this works, friends. If it does, Copilot's actually doing something useful. Unauthorized. We should probably set a Notion API token. What do you think about that? Notion API token. Create a token. No, I don't want this. I want just how to create a token. Authentication, Notion API, introduction, getting started, JSON, pagination. You would think the first thing would be like how to there we go. All right, friends. We're doing this off screen, so you can't figure out what my API token is. And then the odds are that I leak it anyways are high. So, you know, it's how it goes. Alexander, thank you for stopping by. Good to see you. How are you doing? Okay. I am in Notion over here. Go to my integrations. My integrations, cool. I can create a new integration, and let's call this. It's gonna be this. We need to give it a name. Let's call it Recast Content Generation. Submit. Okay, and I have a integration secret. And I can copy it. Okay. And now I can move this out of the way and export Notion. What do we call it? Notion API token, and we can paste it in. Okay. So, could not find database with ID, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, now we got a 404, which is better than a 401. Alive and well, my man, thanks for asking. Well, that's always a good start, let me tell you. Alive and well. All right, so here we have the Notion My Workspace, and this is the database ID. And so this was, I thought, the database ID that we were looking for. Let me just go ahead and jump into my Notion over here. I just have like Notion up on the other monitor, so to speak. It's not really a monitor. It's all right. This is definitely the ID. That's definitely it. And in fact, if we just do this, then we can just remove all this and we should be good to go. So response. Now we're responsing. Object not found. Status could not DB, blah, blah, blah. Make sure the relevant pages and database is shared with your integration. Okay, so we need to share it now. So let's go here. Capabilities. Basic information, secrets, capabilities. It can read content. Can read comments. Seems like it should be able to read content just fine. Do you want to make this integration public? No. It is internal. Secrets. Only works with my workspace. Okay, that's fine. Okay, honestly, it seems like it should work just fine. Okay, object not found. Could not find database with ID. It adds dashes, which is a little interesting, but that's definitely the same ID here, right? Database ID. We have the Notion API token, which we added, so it exists. Make sure the relevant pages are shared. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Share a database with integration. Go to the database, click on the top, add connection. Okay. Click here, add connection. Look at all these. Look at all these connections we can have. Did you ever see? Manage, click manage. My connections. Surely like my own connections would be here. You would think. Settings, members, connections. Oh, recast content generation. There we go. Confirm. Okay. Back to the terminal. Don't print it. Please don't print it. Content. Execute. Ah, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Parent, archive, properties. Complete, prompt, tags, name. Okay. Okay. This doesn't have, oh, no. Prompt ID type. But it doesn't have like name, title. It has a property. Okay, this isn't like quite the row though, right? It's saying like these are the properties in this database. Like the table is the first thing in this page, right? The Notion API is like, okay, blah, blah, blah. But I want like, yes, this is, it's like almost the database. Can I get like the actual ID of this thing itself? Properties, dependencies, view options, right? Okay. So, God, no wonder no one likes working with the Notion API. This is ridiculous. Okay, we did that. That works. Share database. We did that. Save the database ID. We did that. Add an item to the database. So this is creating like a pages with the parent database ID. So maybe we need to do the same thing, right? So maybe we want const response equals await pages. Stop. Retrieve. I want pages. I want to fetch the first page. Add an item to a database. We're so close, friends. Reference. We are so close. Fetch the first row from a database. I kind of want to fetch by like right, like if we're getting the database, like query, get a list of pages contained in the database. But I really just want to get the pages. Just the ID, don't need the ID. Retrieve a database. Database ID. Response.results. ChatGPT said the same thing. But this response.results, right? This is like, given the database ID, this is like the page. It has like a cover and an icon. It says focus on the properties, but this is just, am I missing something here? Right, complete prompt tags name. That's good. That's what we have here, right? Complete prompt tags, but like, I want this title, which is I guess a page, right? This is like a page in Notion. Name, title, text, content used to get properties, name, title. Oh my God, is it fetching this value? Is this the first one? Is it fetching this thing? Delete it. Delete it. Run it again. Oh my God. It is. So now we can do properties dot name dot title. So we can do, what does this look like? What is it? What is it? Okay, so now we have text.content, or you can just grab the plain text attribute, which Copilot knew. Okay, how to convert a PNG to JPEG with ImageMagick. Now the question is, I said get the first one. Is it getting the first one by creation date? How are these sorted? Query, database, page size, response, results. Sort the results in response.results. Oh God. right? We're just asking for the very first one. But this is the first one that we visually see. Is this the first one in the API? So if I create another one and do test, 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 right? So I have 3 tests. So now we should do this, and this should be the same thing. No, it's not. Now it's test, 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 right? So how is this sorting at all? Oh God. The Notion API doesn't automatically preserve the order of rows as they appear in the Notion web app. How is this possible? How is this so bad? Sorts are similar to the sorts provided in the Notion UI. Sorts operate on a database property or page timestamps. But the page timestamp doesn't help because we might create a page later and then want to sort it earlier. Okay. So I guess we need to have like a... let's just do... let's do a number, right? And we can do order, right? And it's just a good old number, shows a number. And so now we can do, this is kind of like priority, I guess, really. But we should be able to sort by this if we do order ascending, and we'll see if we want descending. But we want, perfect. Okay, so if you're doing this from home, building out this whole thing, Notion API, a little funny, we had to add in the order column so we could actually order these as we want to. And so here we're doing priority, where 0 is the highest priority and higher numbers are more high. So without reordering them, which does nothing, you could change this to 0. You can change this to 0 and this to like 10, right? And be like, this isn't a high priority anymore. And then the next time it fetches it, it should fetch the test, test, test one. Test, test, test. And that's the one that would happen. So this is perfect. We'll do back to our normal. Okay, so back to our ultimate plan, right? Thanks, ChatGPT. So now we can get basically the title, which is going to be this. And then we can get the prompt, which will be the same thing. Properties, prompt, and we'll get the rich text. And in the future, complete could be like, it could mark it as complete, which would be cool, because then you could get things that like weren't complete. But for now, we'll just like delete things when we no longer need them. So that gives us the title, that gives us the prompt, and now we can send this off to ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and add OpenAI. And we actually just did this, right, in our ChatGPT example app that we did. So here we can just borrow all this code. And use the Open API token here. And then create our Open API object. And now we don't need to stream it. And the messages right, so this is our should we just be OpenAI? So chat completion request, which has our messages, right? Role content is what we're looking for. So here, and what we're gonna do is the first one we're gonna send is actually role and it specifically wants, I need to find out this enum. Right, so we need to import this. We're not in TypeScript land, so things are a little funky. And so then content, right? And so this is going to be, you are a professional copy writer. You write blog posts for an internet software company. You write cleanly and concisely. Never start a blog post with a title. Always only respond in Markdown with just the content. Right, so here we're doing some prompt engineering to be like, we only want you to do this very specific task, right? A blog post about, and this is just going to be the title for now. And then we can also, and then what we'll do actually is we'll just include anything you might have put into the prompt. So here we'll get rid of that, so there's nothing there. And now the content will be, write a blog post about that, and the role. Right, so this is the very first message, is the enum dot user. And so this is a completion, so now we get the response, and the response should just have the content associated with it in its content. So here we can do console.log content, chat response.data, choices 0 message content is what should be the content. We need to put in a API token for this. I think I have one lying around somewhere. Chat GPT, OpenAI, GP, maybe I don't. Okay, I don't have one lying around. So let's go get an API token. Here you can go to platform.openai.com, go to view API keys. Oh, I do have one here. Oh, I guess I just like didn't. Okay, well, we'll just do recast content, and I'll probably end up leaking it. So we will make sure, so here we can export OpenAI API token with the token. Oh, yep, add it to history. Good job. All right. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. So now we've added that into our environment, and so we can read it here. And so again, we're pulling from the Notion API with our database. We're getting it. We're going to tell ChatGPT to make a blog post about this. And let's fire off. Okay, test type error. Cannot read property undefined plain text. So this thing, rich text, didn't work out. Probably because there was no rich text. Let's just console.log. What's in prompt real quick, right? Prompt has rich text, but there is no rich text. So that's actually fine, right? Rich text is an empty array. So this is going to fail. So we'll just conditional check it. And that means prompt here is going to be undefined, which means we can just do a quick undefined check here. Okay. Cannot read property undefined rich text on line 43. Properties, prompt, rich text, empty array. So rich text. Okay. Data. Okay. 401 unauthorized, which generally means it did not actually get the Open API token, which should have been here. API configuration, new configuration, Open API, OP API token. Grab that from the environment, and this gave us a 401. Okay, let's see. Did we? Oh, well, we typed export in all caps. So don't do that, friends. Okay. It's going, it's going, it's going. Think, think, think. ChatGPT is currently thinking. It's writing us a blog post. Taking its sweet time. But it's going to be a great blog post. We're not streaming it because we don't need to stream it, right? This is just going to all run automatically. So even though streaming it would be like cool, it is entirely unnecessary. So what comes next is once it spits out the blog post, then we have the content. There we go. So here, here's the content, is what we wrote. So this is how ChatGPT started. In today's digital world, flexibility is key. Images play a fundamental role in communicating information. Among the many image formats available, PNG and JPEG are two of the most common. Wow, great. Okay. You know, so our prompts and everything can be a little more, wow, look at that. It says like, is this even a website? Did ChatGPT just hallucinate what the homepage was? No, it is index.php. Is it really index.php? Like, what if I do index.html? Holy cow. It actually is .php. Wow. That's funny. Okay, well, today I learned. Thanks, ChatGPT. So here's a bunch of stuff that we probably don't really want it to do. But we'll get better with the prompts, right? So this is just prompt engineering at this point. But here's the content. So now what we want to do with this content is, instead of spitting it out here, we are going to want to write it to a file in the blog directory. So if we run this from the root directory, we should just be able to write file, and this is going to be, oh god, okay, so now I need another package. So npm, what we want is slugify, just this cute little package that slugifies content. So pnp add slugify. So many things. So we should just be able to slugify some string, right? So here we can import slugify from slugify. Slugify. So content slug equals slugify. And so now we can write to, oh, is join just globally available in ZX? That's nice if it is. The path package, it's just, okay, so path.join. So we want the blog directory, and then we want slug, and it's gonna be an MDX file. We want to await that, and then it should show up here. And before we do this, I'm going to commit this in case we delete everything. Content generation. Okay. So now what I want, how this will run in a GitHub action is going to be this directory, bin, content. It's going to do its thing. And we're going to get the content, and then we're going to write it to blog slug MDX. And so it should appear, I hope, here. And then we will have our new blog post. And then we can execute using ZX. So ZX is nice because what we can do is just running commands on the command line. I'm assuming this is going to work. Should just like, right, just like work super, super easy by awaiting it, right? Executes a given command. So using ZX example, actually I'm gonna try doing this here in this chat. Using ZX, write the code to add the newly created file in blog. Commit it and create a PR to this repo using the GitHub CLI. All right. Oh my gosh. Okay, we can change some of this a little bit, but this actually might work okay as is. This is so cool. Okay, so going back to here, did this work? Okay, reference error join is not defined. Okay, yeah, so blah, 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 blah. This does need to be path, which should be in the global namespace, so we have to do this all again. Now it's going to run all these, which should be okay. Let's see if this actually just like does everything. I do have the GitHub command line set up locally. So if this works, it might just work end to end, which would be fantastic. Also, I did not get a water bottle. So as this sits here and does its thing, I'm gonna grab some water and you can let me know if it was successful or not. I will be right back. Exec is not defined. I don't think we actually need this at all, right? It should just be this. And I don't know if we need exit either, right? Await exit. Right, like we don't need to exit, I don't think. Hey, welcome, welcome. We are just about to finish up what I think is the automatic generation creation using GitHub Actions, Notion APIs, ChatGPT, and GitHub to pull together the automatic creation of blog posts. Do you know what we really want? We really want a Midjourney API, but we don't get that. The thing I mentioned way back is this thing called Banner Bear, which I wonder if it has. Yeah, John, I follow him on Twitter, and I've been watching him build various startups, and he did like this whole like 12 startups in a year and then ended up on Banner Bear and then just ran Banner Bear, and now it makes a ton of money, which is very cool. But it's basically like you build templates, you know, of like pictures and stuff, and then you can just like put in the text dynamically, right? So if we built out, 10 templates for background images and stuff, then you could basically, automatically generate these pictures pretty easily too. And so then like your content generation would be, grab a random template, put the text that you want on it, and then upload it to S3 or wherever your static files are, and then use that as your images. So probably are going to do something like that. There is really no free plan for this. So if we wanted to do it, right, you're looking at like $50 a month, which I don't begrudge them making money at all. Or I wonder if we can use our own service for it. Can you do like image magic, add text to image? Yes. Yes, we can. So maybe we just use our own service for this. Hey, what do you think? What do you think? What if we use our own service? What if this is like our first transformer? And the idea, right, the service is a conversion service. You convert images to images or whatever to whatever. You convert anything. But if you want to take a JPEG and add text to it, you're really not converting it. You're transforming it, right? So we could build this whole concept of a transformer, which like takes in a file format and spits out the same file format, but it's changed. And so here we're really just saying like add in the text at a certain place. Now, there's probably a billion better ways to do this. You know, like blue is probably not a great color, but if we can like pick, you know, Tailwind colors to make it halfway decent, we could probably make this good enough. And remember, we're in MVP mode, right? MVP mode is good enough. And we just want more and more people to kind of come here and play around with this. Okay, so how close did we get? Uncommitted change. Pull request failed. No commits. So we went to add it, but we didn't. How to convert a PNG to JPEG with image magic. But it's here, but it's not. So what failed? If I do git status, oh, we're probably like not on a different branch or anything, right? So go away, delete. Right, git log, add blog. Oh my God, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. Okay, so add blog post also added the $sign, the title. I don't understand. Oh, we have it twice here. Okay, git reset, go back one, git reset, go back another one. It's unwind. Let's do right, this should be basically what we want. It's not what I want. I want more of that, but just the date. So create blog post, and this can be the date. Right, so we're going to check out a new branch, create blog post, whatever the date is. We're going to add that to it. We're going to commit, add blog post title, and then we're going to create, add blog post. We don't need a body. Right, we should just be able to kind of follow these instructions basically exactly, right? So here, so what we can do is we can just return after this. Update script. And now we can just run the script. Illegal return statement. Jeez, so rude. Fine. Run it. Do the generation. This will write the file. We'll run through the git commands and make sure that works. And then in the meantime, well, I don't want to change too much. So then in our GitHub workflow, right, I have this thing here which builds the converter, but we're going to build a new workflow called content, which is going to execute this content, which will run this workflow. Oh, it is 2:41. We have like 30 more minutes to see if we can get this kind of all working. We're close. And then it's just going to be, about touching it up, making it a little prettier, a little nicer. Lucky Strike, what's up? How are you? Hi, chat. Chat's been good today. You guys have been fun. All right, so we successfully created the blog post. Here it all is in perfect markdown. We can run through now these commands and just make sure it's going to work, right? So let's just do git checkout, right? Because the git diff on bin was just us cleaning that up. So git checkout bin, so that's good. So now we cd blog. We create a new blog. We add git add this slug .mdx. We run git commit. We'll just say title for now. And then we go ahead and push it. Title again. Okay. Where should we push the create blog post branch? Is this because I haven't done this before? Oh, we haven't pushed it yet though. So we should do git push origin u. Okay, cancel, send origin u, and we titled this just this, right? Oh, and I need to redirect it. Okay, now we can try that PR again. Okay, and title, and I think we want fill, not file, fill, to just fill in the stuff. Nice. Okay, Video is so helpful learning Next.js 13. Can't wait for you to go over hosting, messing with S3 and RDS, but I don't want to learn. Oh my gosh, dude, lucky strike. I just finished setting up. So for hosting like small things and basic stuff, you can use Vercel, right? But then you want to start adding in like your databases, and especially if you're working in a larger infrastructure, people are like, oh, like we already have AWS set up or Azure or whatever you're using. You should use that. And you're like, okay, great. I spent the last week, I mean, not the entire last week, it was a couple hours, but I used Terraform and completely set up this organization's AWS account. So you have like their VPC and the subnets, and then defining the security groups for the instances, and created the EC2 instances using Elastic container service to run Dockerized versions of Next.js behind an application load balancer, routing all the traffic, security groups set up properly with an RDS database in the background. So like end to end did the entire thing. It's like 5 Terraform files. So it ended up being very, very cool, and defining the infrastructure as code just has a lot of benefits that I'm very, very excited for. And now like whenever you build one of the applications, then it goes and like does the CI on GitHub Actions, and then we'll just update the Terraform files with like the new Docker image, and when that merges, it just automatically deploys. Is it as good as like Vercel? Purely for front end stuff, the answer is no, but Vercel's databases are, yeah. So there you go. Host Next.js on AWS. Okay, so on a GitHub account, I'm logged in. Here we go. So this has some stuff that like we hadn't pushed yet, but this has the blog post image in it. That's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and make this work. And yeah, so first of all, let's go back to main. Second of all, let's look at our code. Someone accidentally selected a T3 large RDS, racked up a couple hundred. Oh no! I'm so sorry to hear that, my friend. I mean, yeah, that definitely stinks. So at my last company, we were doing, not me specifically, but like the team, we were doing some load testing. We were like, what will this look like if we have 100 customers, 1,000 customers, more customers, right? And so to test this, we basically spun up some infrastructure and like ran the tests on the infrastructure, right? And then somehow, I was not involved in this at all. Somehow, the people doing this did not tear down the load testing infrastructure and let it run for like 2 weeks. And do you know how much money it cost the company? It was something like $20,000. Yeah, that was a lesson learned for some people. It was not cheap. Nobody got fired. We took it, I think, very well in stride, and it was a learning opportunity for some people. But after that, we definitely implemented quite a few billing alerts. Dude, I have some harrowing stories of this sort of stuff. It's crazy. Okay, good news is this should work correctly. So, final tweaks to script. Now we need to get it running in GitHub, right? So let's go ahead and push this. So we have all our changes there. So now what we need to do, you just need to be closed. We don't want you at all. Go away. So now we're going to create a new workflow called content. And we're going to have ChatGPT do all the work. Write a GitHub action that is triggered at 6 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that checks out the repo, installs ZX, runs the script at bin content.mjs. Right? That should be what we want. Bin content mjs content here. All right. Hello? Send. All right, and we'll tweak it as necessary. So writing YAML, for anyone who does like work in Kubernetes, man, running YAML is not something that I want to be doing. So we just don't. So content generation, here's our cron schedule. Bash guru. No, not bash, cron. Where's my cron guru? I like to dissect what's happening here, right? 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 0, 6, 0, 6, right? Perfect, love it. Just what we want. We can close our list now. And back to our code. Check out the repo, install ZX, npm install gzx. I don't know if that's gonna work. But what they said here, right, was it said npx zx should work because it comes installed. So we might just be able to do this. So let's go ahead and just also allow me to trigger this manually. Just learned about cron tab this morning. Like in general cron tab or the cron tab guru site. Oh, it says I can do this already. All right, let's go ahead and add this and see what we got. Git add, git commit, feature, add GitHub, proper GitHub action for content. All right, this is sweet. So now let's go. Oh, why did I delete this? Back to our GitHub repo. Yeah, in general, yeah, cron tab's great. For those of you unfamiliar, it's the Unix system method of running things on a schedule. So you can basically say, this is the schedule and I want you to execute this command. And so most of the time that's like running a command, or the command is a script that does a bunch of stuff. But it's like super, it's one of those things that you just like, you set it up and forget about it and just always works. Like I have a cron tab for one of my random web apps that restarts Nginx every 60 days because the SSL cert expires and gets renewed, but Nginx has to be restarted. So just like every 60 days, restart Nginx. It's awesome. Okay. So this thing appears to be running. No, this is the build push. Okay, so here is our content generation world. And it has 0 runs. This workflow has not run yet. I want to run it, but I think I have to have the, I was pretty sure we had to manually have the on whatever workflow thing. GitHub, you're wrong. Actions, content, click the name of the workflow, click on the run workflow button. That doesn't exist because, I think we have to have the on dispatch. Yeah, jeez. Right? Actions. There we go. Workflow dispatch. Sometimes you just need to tell them they're wrong. So I don't have any inputs. Do I need this? Huh. Guess not. YAML is so stupid. Like, look, there it is. See, we did it. Now we can run this workflow manually, which should let us do it. But before we do that, we need to go to settings. We need to go to secrets, actions, and here we need to add in the secrets that we had configured earlier, right? So we're expecting a Notion API token. And I'm going to do this again off screen to really try and not leak information. Show, copy, okay, add secret, and now we can do the same thing for the open API token. New repo secrets, open API token. And I think I can just take it from my terminal because I did the command wrong. And add the open API token and add the secret. Yay! Okay, so now, forgive me, my friends, for not showing secrets. Now we have both of these API tokens added in the actions space, right? So now it should be able to be available for the action, for the content generation, for this workflow. So we're in my repo. Assuming this worked correctly, we're going to pull it from Notion. We're going to ask ChatGPT to make us an article. We're going to add the article to here, and we're going to make a pull request. So let's go ahead and try that and see where it breaks, because it most likely will break a couple times. Doing anything in CI often involves just a couple of iterations because it's very hard to test exactly what's happening here, right, without actually just like doing it. So don't feel bad. Example A, if your thing isn't working and you're like doing a couple commits, like that's just how testing and building CI goes. Okay. Cannot find module .bin.content. So first of all, that's wrong. Was not found and will be installed. That's okay. I think we're gonna also have to, so first of all, our workflow here for content needs to be, oh, .bin.content. That's, oh no, it's .bin. So that's one fix. And then the other fix is we might need to run the installs, right? So our script is going to need access to these libraries. And so unless ZX does that for us automatically, add the install flag to install missing dependencies automatically. Let's try that and see if that just makes this all easier, right? Git status, git add, git commit. fix. So I like to do like for a proper commit, fix CI to like really let people know that these commits are just me fixing CI and stuff. Fix ZX command, right? And you can do, for anyone not familiar, like you can do markdown and everything in commits, which in theory doesn't matter. It's just plain text, right? But if you then like look at your GitHub repo, like all this is parsed nicely as markdown. So it shows like a very clean commit message. So now we can go back to our action. We can go back to our content generation workflow, and we can manually run this again, and we can see where it breaks. So just testing, iterating, content generation. Click it, watch it happen. Watch it break, see what happens, see what we need to do to fix it. So it is installing, it looks like, the things we kind of want. Latest OpenAI, that was good. Slugify, Notion, right? All that was good. The API token is invalid, which makes sense. We need to add in our environment variables, right? So here we need to pass in these two. Secrets. And this can be the OpenAI token. So that should be good. GitHub action environment variable from secret. Not the docs that I want, right? Environment secrets dot, okay, so that should be good. So here, fix CI add in vars, okay, push, go back, run script, content generation, we'll just run it again. Each time fixing the current issue, run it again, see what the next issue is, iterate, repeat forever. The nice thing about being able to run this on demand as well, which is why we're going to keep it, is at any point you can like go to Notion, add in a new piece of content, and then you can just run the workflow, right? And so it will work on demand, which is awesome. Did I study CS in university? I studied computer science to start freshman year, and then I switched majors into software engineering. So at least where I went to school at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, computer science focused a lot more on algorithms, focused a lot more on low-level programming, and then focused on those sorts of things. Whereas software engineering focused much more holistically on the process of how to build software. And I realized pretty early on that like I didn't really care too much about like reading and writing assembly, as I cared a lot more about like architecture and understanding requirements and being able to work with people to build something that they really want. So for me, it was a very, very good switch. Okay, so author unknown because we didn't run our Git configuration. I swear also I just did this, but I'm now blanking on where. So we need to make sure we've run our Git configure our username. So we should do that in our script here. God, is it gonna do the entire thing? I don't need to do the entire thing. It's like super aggressive. And we'll just do me. Because that should be good. Fix CI configure get user. Okay. Content generation, configure get user, run workflow, execute. Let's go. 3 over, so close. So close to getting this to work. I want this to work so we can see it live in production that like we just created this blog post. That's the goal. So what comes after this, right? What comes after this, and I may or may not do this on stream, is we're going to create a RSS feed. So next.js RSS. This person had a good blog for doing this, which was adding the feed package. And then you just basically like run through where your content is, right? Get the metadata. We'll do this in the same way. It's just a page basically. And so, right, like get static props in this case, but this is the old page directory. So we'll have to modify this, but we basically just create a feed with all of our links in it. And so once we've created our RSS feed, what we can do is we can set up the automations to go ahead and check the RSS feed and then post out the content. That's where pictures are also going to come in helpful. Oh no, we're so close. Come on. We're so close. Content, git configuration, quick commit, good, git push. Right? Access to the repo not granted. This man's gonna teach architecture better than anyone. Rose, thank you. I actually, so my last job, I was the architect, and spent a lot of time doing a bunch of meetings going over architecture with various people, and I found it very fulfilling. I think it's always good to be able to have like a high level picture of what you're building. Okay, we're close, but we're not quite there. So GitHub action git push new branch. We need to make a new GitHub personal access token. What? No. Commit and push files to repo. I would have, thought this would be okay, like git push. Okay, but clearly not. GitHub action git push not granted. Workflow permissions, read and write. Maybe it's that. Maybe I don't have workflow permissions. Branches, webhooks, code, collaborators, general. This is mine, right? Actions, general. Allow all actions. Read and write. Read, so choose the default permissions granted to the GitHub token. You can specify more granular. Read and package permissions. Read and write, and you can create pull requests. Save. Let's try that. I would have thought like I could just do this, so let's try that permission first. Run it again. Bunch of the question, right? There's like two things happening. One is there's a GitHub user that's running this, and the GitHub, the workflow itself has permissions. And so we're configuring Git to go ahead and like, hey, Git, you know, add this file, create this branch, push it. And the user behind that Git command needs to have permission to push. So I don't think we're quite in the realm of like working with a GitHub personal access token, because I don't need GitHub access. I need access to the repo, right? So let's see if this does the trick or not. And if not, I'll just keep banging my head at it and post an update. Oh, so close. So close. Okay, here we go. Create a pull request. We need to set the GitHub token environment variable. Okay, so now we need to do this. So this should do it. So here in the content workflow, no, that's the wrong thing. GitHub token in the environment. Don't delete that. All right. One last time, he says, git add, git commit, fix, CI, add GitHub token to workflow. So that's main again. Now, remember, it actually did push it successfully. So if we look at our code, there's two branches now, because this was, the Git part worked successfully now. The GitHub CLI did not work successfully. So we have to delete this, or else it's going to come back to bite us when we rerun the content generation. Run workflow manually. Execute. 6 times should be the charm. Pretty good. All right, 313. If this works, we will celebrate and call it a day. And then I have a meeting I need to get ready for. All right. So executing npm I zx, very fun. Now we got our Notion database. We pulled it successfully. Got the name, no prompt. We are now sending it off to OpenAI and GPT-4 to write an article for us, and then we can simply be the editor instead of like the main content creator. And to make this better over time, you saw we were doing the prompt engineering in this file, right? You're a professional copywriter, blah, blah, blah. We can add in things we want GPT to do specifically and things to avoid specifically, right? So give it examples of like, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, do this, do this, do this. Probably more of the this is good. And, you know, I find negative feedback is worse than positive reinforcement. So we'll just have to write a couple articles and kind of like figure it out. And then we'll be able to kind of feed it back into the system to get more fine-tuned, grained content. It worked. So now pull requests. Oh my God. Okay, I still don't know why there's a $sign there. But we'll fix that later. So files changed. Here's the blog, here's the content.mdx, right? Time to celebrate. So what's really cool about this, right, is I would have thought this would have been deployed. Why is Vercel not deploying this? That's interesting. I wonder if Vercel doesn't deploy things because like GitHub Actions made this commit, made this pull request. I want my preview environment. Where's my preview environment? What's going on? Deployments. Is it failing? Did we break something? No. What happened? Why did my entire thing just like disconnected? Settings. Git. Is Vercel having problems? How often does this happen on stream? For people who have been watching these live streams for a couple of weeks, I think this happens every week where something is broken and it's not working flawlessly. Okay. Besides the fact that all of our services that we're using are hideously broken, the goal here, right, is this is a pull request, and so Vercel is going to automatically deploy this into the preview environment, which means we have a great place to like look at our blog posts. You can send them to friends to get people to read them. You can do like editing, you can tweak images and stuff like that, all in this pull request. You can just pull down this Git branch, do any changes. So we can just come here, right, pull down, check out the blog post, and then go into the code and be like, here's our brand new, can delete all this, right? Here's our great blog post. Toggle the wrap so we can use the read it, not gonna comment. Okay, we're like, oh, well, let's do some formatting, like run prettier on it. Be like, okay, launch prominent, like, okay, let's actually change this to, right, we want to run 3 ticks and do bash, and that's how we want to format it, so we can get rid of this, right? Okay, perfect. And then we can go ahead and so the git log here is at the blog post, so we can git reset, re-add it, and then commit over this head and get rid of that. And then we can just force push over it, and now you refresh this page and you have this back and you have this, and you can like, again, just do your whole iteration cycles of like actually going ahead and writing it. So that is how we have now fully automated the editing, writing, everything of our blog posts. And so I'll wait for all of our services to kind of come back. But that is a wrap for this live stream. I'm going to spend probably a little bit of time making the blog page look a little nicer and figure out a halfway decent way to get in some images, because I think images really make a blog page nice. But it's mostly just going to be a grid of the articles. And because it's statically built and we're not like fetching this from a database, we can just have all the blog posts. And so next big things will be adding in the RSS feed so we can automate a whole bunch of integrations, and then making sure our website has a sitemap so this stuff can be easily discoverable. And so we will build both of those, and then we kind of have our content generation engine ready, right? So then we're like posting these articles to all the social media accounts, and this is like the content marketing side of building out a business. But I think it's a really powerful way to get into the mindset of how can I use tools and like ChatGPT and other AI tools, like Copy AI, right? Pick your favorite. How can I use these tools to make my life easier? And we've basically boiled all of our content generation down to once a week on Sunday, think of the 3 article titles you want to write, put it into Notion, and walk away. And then you just have to like look over the pull requests and do a little bit of editing, make sure it's like in your tone, the way you want it, establish kind of how you want the writing to go. And then you merge them, and then they're out there, and then all your integrations will happen. So I have a Twitter account for this project. I need to create a bunch of other accounts. I feel so weird making a Facebook account for this thing, but I feel like the older population is the population that's on Facebook, and also the population that honestly needs this sort of thing most. They're not installing ImageMagick. They just want to go to a computer and convert their files, right? So it'll probably be a good market. So yeah, there we go. We have done quite a bit here, more to do, but we're in a really good place with a really lot of fun automations. So I hope you enjoyed, went through, made the blog, did a bunch of MDX stuff. I plan to be back Thursday, although I might have some workers at our house, so schedule to be decided. But in theory, I am going to be back here Thursday streaming, and we're going to pick up where we left off and just kind of keep pushing this forwards and kind of see how, once we get the content thing in a good place, it's going to be just back to refining the service, right? We want to convert anything to anything, so add a bunch of extra file types. So we'll go from there. All right, everyone, have a fantastic end of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.